This will be the beginning of the deposition of Thomas Bensley, January 10th, 2018. The time is 12:11 p.m. and we're on the record. This is a case of Jesse Williams versus Grand Traverse County for the state of Michigan in the 13th Circuit Court, case number 1732326CZ. And now the attorneys will identify themselves and whom they represent, and the court reporter will swear in the witness.
Josh Blanchard on behalf of the plaintiff, Jesse Williams.
Greg Grant for defendant.
Sheriff Bensley, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give shall be nothing but the whole truth?
Yes.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I'm Josh Blanchard.
Yes, sir.
I represent Jesse Williams in a FOIA lawsuit that we're here about. You understand that, right?
Yes.
Have you given deposition testimony before?
Yes.
Okay. How many times?
Once.
How long ago?
Three to 4 years ago.
What was the nature of the claim for which you were deposed?
A death in the jail.
Okay. Would you spell your last name for me?
B as in boy, Ensley.
You are the elected sheriff of Grand Traverse County?
Yes.
How long have you served in that role?
Since January 1st, 2009.
Prior to being elected as a sheriff, what did you do for a living?
I started working for the sheriff's office in 1971 and seasonally, and in 1973 I became full-time, working various positions. 1974 I was sworn as a law enforcement officer and worked in that capacity until 1983. I was put in charge of the Recreational Services Department, Marine Snowmobile, and ORV operations, and I retired in 2000 or 1999, I think it was.
Okay. And then what did you do from...
For a while, I was a stay-home dad, and I also worked for a few years as a service manager at a local boat dealership.
So prior to 1999, you were M. Coles certified?
Yes.
That lapsed after your retirement?
The certification, yes.
As a sheriff, you don't have to be certified, right?
Correct.
You're a law enforcement officer,
Yes.
but your day-to-day job isn't that of responding to complaints and arresting people, correct?
Correct.
As the sheriff, you fulfill an administrative role?
Yes.
You're aware that we're here for a lawsuit involving the denial or partial denial of a FOIA request from Mr. Williams, correct?
Yes.
Have you reviewed a copy of the complaint that I filed in this matter?
I did, yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you a copy of plaintiff's complaint. Is that what you're talking about when you say you reviewed it?
Yes. I reviewed it.
When did you review it?
Most probably shortly after it was received.
Okay. And with whom did you review it?
Myself.
Okay. Are you talking about after you were served with it? That's when you looked at it?
I read it, yes.
Okay. Have you reviewed it since then?
I don't believe so.
Okay. And you're aware that the county, the sheriff's office filed an answer to the complaint, correct?
Yes.
Did you review that answer before it was filed?
I don't believe so.
Do you know if anyone on behalf of the sheriff's office reviewed that answer before it was filed?
Could you clarify what you mean by review?
Anybody look at it before it was filed with the court?
I believe the undersheriff filed that, and I'm sure that he looked at it. And I believe that our FOIA coordinator, Deb Fountain, may have. I'm not sure.
Could you slide that back, please? Did you make off with the answer? Let's go off the record for a second.
Oh, no, the record, the time is
You're looking for the
12:16 p.m.
that
Back on the record, the time is 12:18.
I'm showing you an electronic copy of the answer that was filed in this case.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just place an objection to the extent that we don't know whether it's been altered. We'd take your word for it that that's a copy of the answer that was filed in this case.
Well, why don't
It's not
you,
a written copy.
It's fine. Why don't you take a look at that, and does it appear to you to be the answer, or have you never reviewed the answer?
This appears to be the answer, and I might clarify that when I get these things, I take I take a look at them and I pretty much just put them on my desk because this is not one of my main responsibilities, or actually I don't do really any FOIA stuff, but I read through this stuff and may have comments to the undersheriff or something like that, but it's not something I study and study and study and study. So,
On that note, do
Yeah.
you know if you reviewed the answer before it was filed?
I don't know.
Okay. If it wasn't you who reviewed it, who at your office would have had the responsibility to review it before the answer was filed?
Just object to foundation. Object to the form of the question, responsibility.
It most probably would have been prepared, some of this, by the undersheriff. I know we were in consultation with the prosecutor's office, the county's chief FOIA officer. So if you prepare it, would reviewing it before it's sent be appropriate? Or, I'm just trying to, when you use a review, I've seen it. Did I see it before or after it was filed? I don't recall.
Do you know if anyone else provided input to the sheriff's office's lawyers before the answer was filed?
I'm not clear on the question.
Do you know if anyone met with the sheriff's department's lawyers and told them the factual things to include in the answer?
I don't know the answer to that.
Did you do that?
I don't recall doing that, no.
Okay.
And I probably didn't.
What party were you elected by?
A Republican Party?
Okay.
Well, I ran on the Republican ticket. I was elected by the citizens in the county.
That's a fair answer. You ran on the Republican ticket?
Yes.
Okay. And your job is one that is part politics, right?
Yes.
You're accountable to the citizens of Grand Traverse County, correct?
Yes.
And you're accountable for your own actions to the citizens of Grand Traverse County?
Absolutely.
You're also accountable for the actions of the people you choose to put in positions of authority, correct?
I believe you're correct in that, yes.
You're accountable for the operations of the road patrol of the sheriff's office?
Simply put, the buck stops with me.
On every issue related to sheriff's office?
On every issue. Okay? So, yes, the buck stops with me.
You have the authority to hire and fire your employees.
That's correct.
The only entity that can hire and fire you are the voters, right?
Correct.
You believe in transparency?
Yes.
You think the public has a right to know what's going on inside of its government, right?
Yes.
And that includes the operations at the sheriff's department, correct?
To some extent, yes.
You believe that public oversight is an important part of having a healthy honest to government, right?
Yes.
So the citizens have a right to know, at least to some extent, the internal operations of the sheriff's office,
To
correct?
some extent, yes.
Because if something happened at the sheriff's office that was unacceptable, the citizens might want to make a change at the sheriff's office.
They might.
And they'd have a right to make a change if they wanted to,
Oh, yes, absolutely.
and a right to investigate and learn what's going on in their government, right?
To some extent, I believe that's correct.
You're familiar with what's called the Michigan Freedom of Information Act, correct?
Generally, yes.
You're generally aware that it's a law that permits citizens to request public records relating to their government.
Yes.
And you're aware that one of the primary motivations of the legislature, as expressed in FOIA, was accountability in government.
Yes.
And FOIA is structured such that citizens can get an accounting from their government of what's going on.
Yes.
You would agree that we don't want people to die in jails, correct?
Correct.
We want people to be safe in jails.
Correct.
You're aware that this FOIA request was related specifically to circumstances surrounding the death of Mr. Holloway in your jail, correct?
Yes.
And I think you mentioned at the outset of your deposition, the only other time you've been deposed was related to a jail death.
Yes.
So there have been at least 2 jail deaths. Is that accurate?
Yes.
There have been more than 2, right?
I believe there was a third, but as far as my tenure, it's been 2.
Do you believe the public is entitled to know what happened inside your jail on the day that Mr. Holloway died?
To some extent, yes.
What do you mean to some extent?
Well, it's been established that he died in the jail. And I think the investigation done by the Michigan Sheriff's Association mission team detailed all of those actions leading up to his death.
Do you think the people that elected you are entitled to know the details of how a gentleman hung himself inside the jail?
Yes. To some extent.
You keep qualifying with some extent. What's the extent to which they're entitled to know?
Well, my general vague knowledge of FOIA, lets us keep some issues, some things from the public. For example, maybe our operations and tactics on the law enforcement side, okay? And the operations inside the jail.
And what's your understanding of the extent to which you're allowed to keep things inside the jail secret, so to speak?
Well, obviously, we have to follow FOIA,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And there's some interpretations there. It depends on which side of the fence you may be sitting on, depending on, what position you're at. But things that might go to the safety, security of the officers who work there, procedures we have, how it's operated, staffing levels, all those things that might have a detriment on the security and the systems we have in place.
When was the first time you became aware that Mr. Williams had submitted a FOIA request for documents related to Mr. Holloway's death?
Whenever I received them, I can't recall the date or time.
You received the FOIA request?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I think maybe you misunderstood my question.
Okay.
So we're here about a lawsuit, right?
Yeah, right.
And prior to the lawsuit, there was a request for records that was sent to your department.
Yes.
When did you first become aware that the records had been requested?
When I was made aware of the FOIA request.
So you were made aware of the request?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any idea when that was?
No.
Was it before or after your office denied the request?
Well, I'm sure it was before.
Okay. Are you involved generally in responding to FOIA requests?
Absolutely not.
So why would you have been made aware of this one?
I believe it was sent to me.
Okay. I'm going to show you what is Exhibit 1 to
Okay.
our complaint.
Okay?
You're saying that you received that via email?
I've seen this. I suspect, yes, I did. Okay?
And,
Well, the preservation request, yeah.
okay.
That would have come probably before the whatever. So I've seen this.
You've
When
seen
did I get
exhibit-
it? Probably shortly after August or 16th or on August 16th.
Very well. Did you discuss this request with anyone at your office?
Probably.
Do you have any independent recollection of that?
No.
Okay. There's been some testimony from Ms. Fountain about meetings related to Mr. Williams' August 16 FOIA request.
Okay.
Did you participate in any of those meetings?
I could have a specific meeting. I do recall that on occasions when the records we were in the process of assembling that. The undersheriff's office is near mine. Ms. Fountain would be in there, maybe Captain Ritter from the jail. And I'd pop my head in there and listen to what's going on, and I would leave, that kind of thing. Sit right down with them for 2 hours and discuss this and that, no.
Did you ever go to a meeting that involved Mr. Forsyth from the prosecutor's office about this FOIA request?
I don't recall. Possibly. I'm trying to picture myself in their meeting room where typically we would meet. Could have been there. I don't specifically recall being there.
If you went to a meeting like that, would you have taken notes?
No.
Do you keep a calendar?
Yes, I do.
Would there be an entry on your calendar for
Could
a meeting
be.
like that?
Could be. Could be. It's an old paper calendar that you just write on with a pencil.
You still have your 2017 paper calendar, right?
Yes, I do.
You're not going to destroy that, are you?
I don't have plans.
Okay. You are aware now that Mr. Williams' FOIA request was denied in part, correct?
Yes.
When did you first become aware of that?
Probably when the request was sent out and denying that.
Okay. Are you normally made aware of all FOIA denials?
No.
Why were you made aware of this one?
It's a little out of the ordinary.
What do you mean by
in
out of the
that,
ordinary?
well, our FOIA requests, we have many of those, and I have no idea what's going on. This is a little different situation, dealing with a lawsuit, with a death in a jail, so to speak. So, somebody could have told me, yeah, we sent that out. Here's our response. You want to take a look at it? Okay, fine. So, that's kind of how I operate with FOIA.
Do you have any independent recollection of participating in the decision to deny or the basis for the decision to deny?
I don't believe I had anything to do with those denials.
When did you first speak with someone about the possibility that the sheriff's office would be sued related to Mr. Holloway's death?
Probably on the night that he hung himself.
With whom did you have that conversation?
Could have been Captain Ritter, maybe the undersheriff. Past practice points exactly to that. It's happened before, why wouldn't it happen this time, kind of thing. We just kind of assume that, yep, something's going to happen here.
Is Mr. Forsyth generally civil counsel for the sheriff's office?
It depends. With this, the prosecutor's office the prosecutor is the county's chief FOIA officer. Because of our operation, which is quite large, we kind of do this on our own. When we need official assistance, we contact the prosecutor's office. Typically, it's Mr. Forsyth. By saying we, it's usually Ms. Fountain, Captain Fulis, or the undersheriff.
Are you familiar with the operations of the jail?
Generally, yes. Specifically, no.
You're aware that Mr. Holloway died of hanging, right? Mm-hmm. Is that a yes?
I'm sorry, yes.
We're making a recording.
Yes.
Thank you. You're aware that he hung in his cell for a period of hours before, on video recording, before he was discovered.
I don't know the length of the recording, but yes.
Okay. But you know there was a period of hours, right?
Yes.
More than 2, right?
Yes.
Have you reviewed that video?
In its totality, no.
Why not?
Oh, I wasn't gonna. I don't believe I need to review the video. 3 hours of, or 2 hours, or whatever the case may be, of Mr. Holloway motionless in his cell.
How do you know that the whole video is him motionless?
I'm sorry?
How do you know the whole video is him motionless if you didn't
I don't
review
know
it?
that. I don't know that.
So you don't know what's in the video and you haven't watched the whole thing?
Well,
Well, I'm going to
I
object. That's a
haven't-
compound question. Hang on. I'm going to object to the form. Object to the compound nature of the question.
You haven't watched the whole video
yes, you're correct. Correct.
and you don't know what's in the video then?
Well, again,
Not
I'm
in its
objecting.
totality.
Okay. Are you familiar with the request for video recordings, the FOIA request for video recordings of what occurred within Mr. Holloway's cell?
I'm aware of that request.
Are you aware that it was denied?
I'm aware of that.
Are you aware that it was denied because it was claimed that release would prejudice your office's ability to maintain the physical security of the jail?
I believe that was one of the reasons.
Are you aware of any other reasons?
No.
Okay. What have you seen in that video that would prejudice the ability of the sheriff's office to maintain the physical security of the jail?
Would you repeat that?
What have you seen in the video that would prejudice the ability of the sheriff's office to maintain physical security of the jail?
Object to the foundation. You can answer if you can, Sheriff.
Well, I believe it's partially the operation of what occurred on medication pass, how that's conducted, how doors are opened, closed, how inmates are moved or requested to move, layout of the facility, timing, things of that nature.
Okay. So you talked about medication pass, right? Mm-hmm. Is that a yes?
Yes.
The medication pass is something that happens out in the hallways, right?
No.
Okay. Did medication pass occur during the time period that Mr. Holloway was hanging in his cell?
I don't believe so.
Okay. So during the time period that Mr. Holloway was hanging in his cell, we would not see anything on the video from within his cell about medication pass, correct?
I believe that's correct.
Okay. During the time period that Mr. Holloway was hanging within his cell, were any inmates moved in or out of his cell?
Of his cell?
Yes.
I don't believe so.
Okay. And there's a video camera inside his cell, correct?
At At some location, yes.
That, well, it depicted him hanging from the cell, right?
Just object. Foundation.
It depicted him in a stationary position next to the door for a long time.
So-
Okay, so without going back, I don't think I can
That's fair,
say
but
yes.
He
There
hung
was a video-
himself,
okay.
or died by attaching a sock around his neck through the food poured and onto something on the outside of the door, correct? Is that a yes?
Yes, sorry.
And then he apparently like sat down and then was motionless for a period of hours.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
I believe the mission team referred to that as an awkward position, correct?
Object
Okay.
foundation.
Okay. You saw the video that depicts him from inside of the cell, motionless by the door for a period of hours, correct?
Yes.
During the time period that, well, let's call that the time he was hanging, okay?
Okay.
While he was hanging, no inmates were moved in or out of his cell, correct?
From, I don't believe so, but I did not watch an extended version of the video.
Do you,
So I would conclude no, because
because one of your
he
corrections officers
probably
would
would
be,
have discovered Mr. Holloway.
right, if they went through the door, they would have done something,
Oh,
correct?
yes,
Okay, you've had no doubt about that, right?
correct.
Okay. And so during the time period that he's hanging, we're not, from within his cell, from that video camera, going to see inmate movement, correct?
Other inmate movement, correct.
Correct, okay. You said it would show the layout of the facility. The video would, right?
Partial, yes.
So the video from within his cell would show that he was in a square cell, right?
Let me just place a quick foundation objection. Maybe hopefully this will help you, but you keep referring to the video within his cell. I don't know that the camera is in his cell, and that's what it appears like you're insinuating, and I don't think that it is. So,
I appreciate that. We don't, because we haven't been given the video, it's hard to tell.
okay, that's fine.
So there is a video that depicts what's going on within his cell, correct?
Yes,
Whether that camera is inside or outside, it's showing what happens in his cell, correct?
yes. I believe the camera is in the cell.
Okay. And so that camera that's in the cell, as far as layout, it would show us what the inside of a cell looks like, correct?
Most of it,
So not even the entire layout of the cell.
correct.
So it would show us part of a rectangular cell.
Most of it, yes.
So it's not going to show us where the cell is in relation to exits, correct?
That particular camera, its position, it may not show it, but you can conclude where it is.
Sure. And you could also conclude that from a layout of the jail floor plan, correct?
I'm not sure.
You could conclude where the hallways are from a floor plan, right?
Yes, yes,
I'm going to show you what was marked as Exhibit 1 in Miss Fountain's
Yes.
deposition. Do you recognize that document?
Yes.
Is that the floor plan of the first floor of the jail?
Yes, it is.
Okay. That tells the public an awful lot more about layout of the jail than a video from within Mr. Holloway's cell would show, correct?
Objection foundation.
I don't think so.
You think a video showing part of a rectangular cell tells you more about the jail than the floor plan?
No, this is the floor plan of the jail. Yes,
Yes.
that's correct.
Okay. And
That shows
that-
the layout of the jail. Yes.
does that floor plan give you more information about the layout than a video?
Yes, obviously, it's the entire facility.
Okay. Were you aware that that's in the public domain?
No.
Did you have the National Institute of Jail Division prepare a report?
Yes.
Did they inspect your jail?
Yes.
Have you seen that report before?
Yes.
Do you recall if the floor plan to the jail is included within that?
No, I don't.
Okay, would it refresh your recollection to take a look at that report?
If it was in there, it's in there. I don't recall it. I've seen the floor plan of the jail many times.
Your right thumb's on it right now.
I've seen this many times, other than this. So if it was there, I wasn't going to stop and look at it for 15 or 20 minutes. So,
Very well.
okay.
So you've seen the floor plan in a number of locations, not just in this report.
I don't recall it being in that report, but it's there. And yes, I've seen the floor plan of the jail.
Let's go ahead and,
Okay.
I've marked it as Exhibit 1.
Yes.
Go ahead and take a look through it. Take as much time as you need. Tell me if it's an accurate copy of the report.
I would assume that this is an accurate copy of the report. Okay.
Well, don't assume, Sheriff. You know, either you know it is or you don't know it is. I mean, if you have a way to discern whether it is or you don't, just tell them.
If it's a copy of the report, I would agree that it's a copy of the report. I probably have the original at my office, so. Yeah,
Okay,
that's the report.
so you have the original of the report at your office.
Someplace, probably at my office or at the jail.
So when I send a request to your lawyer to admit that that's a true copy of the report, you'll be able to figure it out and tell me that,
I
right?
would hope so, yes.
Okay. You would agree that once something like that is out in the public domain, it's out in the public domain, right? It's accessible to anyone.
Well, this was a very public process, the review of the jail. And it was presented to the Board of Commissioners. They wanted the study, we had it done, it was for their use, and whatever they get in public session is pretty much open to the public.
And so that report, the original of that report, was presented to the
Yes.
county commissioners at an open meeting.
Yes,
And so the contents of that report is available to all of the public.
it's available, yes.
And that was back in June of 2014 that the report was completed.
I believe so, yes.
And so it was sometime in the year of 2014 it would have been presented to the county commissioners.
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been collectively marked as Exhibit 2.
Okay.
Go ahead and flip through those. Actually, let's do this. I'd like you to initial any page where you recognize what's the facility that's depicted.
I would object to the form. I didn't understand that.
I want you to look at the first picture there.
Do
First
I
page.
recognize this picture?
Do you recognize the picture? First question.
Yes.
Okay, what do you recognize it to be?
A picture of jail inmates in a room.
Okay. Is that a room within your jail?
Most probably it is.
Okay, why do you say that?
It came from the report,
Okay.
and the
So-
report was on our jail.
So you-
Now, do I recognize this room? I suspect this is a classroom in the basement, okay?
So you recognize that as a photo that came from the report?
The report.
Okay. Can I get you to initial that first page? Slid your pen there if you need it.
Any, near the exhibit?
Just in one of the upper right-hand corner. Let's do it there. Okay. Would you turn to the next page, please? Do you recognize what's depicted there?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
Part of the intake area at the jail.
Okay. Would you initial that then? Same question. Do you recognize that?
Same answer.
Is that also an inmate being frisked?
It appears to be, yes.
Okay. If you would initial that, please.
Searched,
Do you recognize that?
yes.
What is that?
That's one of the main original corridors of the jail.
Okay. Do you know where that picture came from?
I'm assuming all these pictures came from the National Institute of Corrections review of our jail.
You don't know for sure. It's
They're not in this report, a copy of this report, so
But you're aware that photos from inside the jail
Yeah.
are out there, correct? Out in the public domain?
it was presented to the County Board of Commissioners. If that's the public domain, then that's the public domain.
If you would initial that page since you recognize it. Thank you. Next.
Yes, I recognize this as, looks like a portion of our jail. Exactly where it is, I can't tell you, but it's a standard that have in the jail.
And that's the one that has the numbers 74 and 75 depicted?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and initial that page and turn to the next, please. What do you recognize there, if anything?
Appears to be it appears to be a jail cell. Can't be specific on where it is.
Okay. You believe it's inside your jail?
I believe I do.
Okay.
I believe it is.
I would appreciate it if you'd initial. Thank you. What's depicted there? On the picture that has 101 and 30 on the door numbers?
Right. It appears there's one of our corrections officers with his hand on the cell door.
And is that inside your jail?
Yes.
Does that show the hallways?
It shows a hallway.
Does that show an exit sign?
Yes.
Does that show door numbers?
Yes.
If you would initial it, please. What's depicted in the next picture?
I believe that's one of our corrections officers sitting on a chair in an area of the jail where we used to have a X-ray machine, live scan.
That was
Machine.
a device you used to maintain the physical security of the jail by X-raying people to see if they had contraband, right?
I don't know if you call it physical security, but yes, we would X-ray people who would come in for contraband.
Do you think it would impact the physical security of the jail if someone brought a gun into the jail?
I look at physical security as being bricks and mortar, the bars, the walls. That's how I interpret physical
Okay.
security.
So what does that mean? As long as nobody damages the wall, it doesn't impact the physical security?
Check to the form.
What would impact the physical security, Sheriff?
Somebody drives a car through the wall.
Okay.
Okay, or a wall is taken down, or something like that.
So damage to the bricks and mortar?
Yeah, I think so. That's what I would. It's a physical security.
So
okay, now
your understanding then isn't related to like institutional security, control of inmates, protection of the jail staff. That's not within your definition of physical security.
I mean that's part of jail security, yes. But I just look at physical as the physical being of the jail.
Okay. If you would initial that one, if
How
you
I
recognize
look
it.
at that.
What does that appear to be?
Appears to be one of our officers sitting in the control room.
Does that depict a video monitor showing what's going on within the jail?
Yes.
When these pictures were taken, they were taken during jail operating hours, right?
I assume so, yes.
Because the jail never closes, right?
Correct.
So the jail's always operating?
Yes.
So when these were taken, they were taken of real operations, correct?
Yes.
Okay. If you would initial that page, please. What does that depict?
Depicts people in exterior hallway of the jail.
Does that depict inmates?
I don't see any inmates there.
Okay. It shows a hallway.
Yes.
It shows some bars.
Yes.
Looks like some windows.
Yes.
Okay. Do you
Lights.
Initial that, please. Is that another video of the control center? Or
It's
a
a-
picture of the control center?
Appears to be, yes.
And it again shows video monitors?
I believe that's what those are. That's a picture of a portion of the intake area
Okay.
at the jail.
Shows deputies doing their work.
I hope they're working, yes.
Would you initial that, please?
Picture of some Grand Traverse County Jail inmates sitting at a table behind bars.
Is that within your jail?
I believe it is,
you would
simply
initial it?
because it says Grand Traverse Jail on the shirt.
You're not aware of any other jails that use?
Grand Traverse Jail shirts? No.
Okay.
Or TV shows. That appears to be one of our cells.
And does that show
Inmates
inmates?
in there. Shows inmates in there. The back of inmates.
And it appears to be in your jail, correct?
Yes. Appears to be some jail bars.
Do you know if that's in your jail or not?
I assume it is.
Okay.
Same construction as design as the others.
Okay, so it's same construction, not sure if it's your jail?
I'm probably pretty sure it is with the news media logo.
Well,
on there.
why would that cause you to believe that it was your jail? Have you given an interview to 7 and 4 before?
I've given many interviews to 7 and 4.
Do you recall giving interviews to 7 and 4 related to the 2014 report?
I don't recall, probably did, but so.
Why don't you turn to the next one?
Initial this one.
If you believe it was within your jail, yeah.
I believe it is
Go
because
ahead.
it's with all the others that that appears to be in our jail.
If you would initial it. And that shows an inmate and a deputy, some bars around them.
Yes.
Okay.
No. These appear to be cell doors.
Oh, so they're in a hallway near cell doors,
It
but no
appears
bars.
to be a hallway. Yes.
Okay.
Where? I'm not sure.
But within your jail, correct?
I'm sure that's probably within our jail.
Okay.
This one also.
If you would initial that one as well, please. I believe that is the extent of the photos in what has been marked as Exhibit 1, 2.
2.
You believe that all of the photos in there were taken within your jail, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And there's only one that you have any amount of question about?
Any. Very little, but
Okay. Do you know how those photos, or strike that, why did you let those photos be taken?
Objective foundation.
those photos were taken as part of the study done by the National Institute of Corrections.
Is that study something that you requested?
Yes, the county did.
Did you permit it?
Permit the
The
study?
study?
Yes.
Okay.
Did I know they were taking photographs inside there? No, I did not.
You didn't see anyone with cameras inside?
I wasn't there when they were conducting the study.
Was anyone disciplined over the photos?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Did you ever express unhappiness with the fact of photos being
No.
taken within your jail?
Not at that time.
When did you?
Well, we're a little concerned about it now.
When you say now, what do you mean?
Well, the information presented in a public forum was probably not on our radar screen. Say, wait a minute, we can't be giving all this information out.
Did you ever allow 7 and 4 to shoot video within your jail?
I'm sure we did.
Why would you allow that?
Again, a news story. We're trying to be accommodating to the public and the news media.
Did you ever allow the Record Eagle to take pictures within the jail?
I can't recall specifically. I think they've probably have some generic shots.
Okay. Are you aware that one of the things that was redacted from the documents produced were the camera identifiers, so the numbers that identified cameras?
I believe so.
Okay. Do you know, are these camera numbers just numerics like 13, 14?
Yes, I assume so.
You assume or you know?
You can only testify what's within your personal knowledge, Sheriff.
I believe that's correct. They are numbered,
Okay.
not lettered.
They certainly don't have names like Fred or Greg, right? They're,
Correct.
you believe, numeric.
Yeah, I believe they're all numeric.
Are the numbers marked on the cameras themselves?
I don't know.
Okay. What information is conveyed by the number of the camera?
Object to the form of the question. Vague.
By the number, I believe there's a location and a video monitor associated with the camera.
So if you,
camera 35 or camera 62 shows up on the screen in the control room, camera 62, and then there's some, okay, that's here.
and so there's really two pieces of information. There's the number and then where the number's located, right?
I believe so, yes.
So if you see 62 and all you know is 62, you know that it's camera 62, right?
Correct.
It's not like if you had labeled the cameras instead of 62, if you had labeled them men's pod 6 northwest corner, you would know it was in men's pod 6 northwest corner, right?
Correct.
But all your numbers convey to the person who receives that information is a number, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so how does releasing the number of the camera compromise the physical security of the jail?
The number of the camera, how does that compromise the physical security of the jail?
You correctly repeated my question.
This is going around in my head. So again, I'm back to this physical thing. Okay, I mean, it would show, it would indicate a location in the jail, I believe.
How would it do that?
Well, there's a number associated with a camera in a specific location.
Well, but the number doesn't tell us the location, right?
Object to the foundation.
The number itself, no, but there's some corresponding information. I don't know how they do that in the jail, okay, but they know that 62 is here and 47 is there. Do they have to look at a sheet or a piece of paper to make that connection? I don't know how they do that.
Are you familiar with the requirement under the Freedom of Information Act that you separate information that's exempt from information that's not exempt and release the non-exempt information?
Vaguely.
Do you know if your FOIA coordinator does that?
No, I don't know.
Okay. But the buck stops with you, right?
Oh, yes.
And so if it doesn't get separated, that's your responsibility, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
There were some emails that were apparently exempted pursuant to what's commonly called the frank communication exception to FOIA.
Yes.
Are you familiar with the frank communication exception?
Vaguely.
Okay. Are you familiar with the emails that were exempted pursuant to
I
that
believe I
exception?
know which singular email you're talking about.
Okay. Who was that email sent by?
I believe it was communication between me and Mr. Menzel.
You and Mr. Who?
Menzel,
Who is Mr. Menzel?
the former county administrator.
When did he become former?
December 30, September
September of...
last year.
Okay. And why is he no longer with the county? If you know.
He was asked to leave by the county board. He retired. He retired.
It was not an amicable parting?
Absolutely not.
Okay. So So there was an email between you and Mr. Menzel. Do you know how to spell Menzel?
Menzel.
And without telling me the content of the email, what was the subject matter of the email?
It had to do with personnel issues.
Okay. Did it relate to Mr. Holloway's death?
Indirectly.
Did it... How long was the email?
I don't recall.
More than...
1 page total, both. I mean,
Was this related to a recommendation on a personnel matter?
no.
Okay. Were there... Do you know if that email was reviewed by Ms. Fountain?
No, I don't.
If somebody sends a FOIA request for copies of your emails, do you know how Ms. Fountain would obtain those?
No.
Do you know if she can obtain those?
I think she can. I think that's all handled through our IT department.
How did you come to understand that there was one email that was in dispute?
I believe the undersheriff told me that we're exempting this because of frank and honest communications, following the FOIA rules and regulations.
Was this email to Mr. Menzel, did it contain your sort of conclusion or decision about what to do with whatever you talked about?
No.
Did Mr. Menzel reply to you?
Yes.
Do you answer to Mr. At the time that he worked here, did you answer to Mr. Menzel?
No.
Do you answer to the County Board of Commissioners?
No. Some respects, if you want to put it that way. No. Sheriff's Office is independent of the County Board of Commissioners. We are a co-employer.
Sure.
So that's the relationship.
Do you think that the email was of an advisory nature?
Check to the form of the question.
Without looking at it, yeah, could be. I
Not
don't
sure.
know. I mean, depends on who looks at it and depends on if it's this or that.
Because sometimes there's kind of a fine line, right? Between advisory and not.
I guess so.
A lot of times we'll have a mix, a little of advisory, a little factual, right?
Objective foundation.
Could be.
Calls for
yeah,
speculation.
I guess.
When was the last time you looked at that email?
I don't recall. You mean reviewed it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen it. I believe somebody within the past few weeks wanted a copy of it, but I didn't sit down and look at it and read it.
When you say somebody wanted a copy, who wanted a copy?
I think the undersheriff was looking for a copy, or Mr. Grant, but I didn't review it. I didn't read it.
So your email to Mr. Menzel would have had a date that it was sent on the email, correct?
Oh, sure.
That date doesn't advise Mr. Menzel of anything, right? It's not an opinion, fair?
Yeah, correct.
It's just a fact. It's the date that it was sent.
Oh, yeah, the date it was sent is the date it was sent. Yeah, sure.
And it has your return email address and that you sent it, correct?
I assume, yes.
Those are just facts about what happened, right?
About emails.
It would have a subject line, right?
I suppose so, yeah. If it was titled that way, if you put in a subject line, if that's what you call it.
Do you recall if you did in this case?
No, I don't.
How long after Mr. Holloway's death was the email sent?
I don't recall.
Are you aware that it was requested the sheriff's office provide Mr. Williams copies of witness statements?
Can you say that again?
Are you aware that Mr. Williams requested copies of witness statements given by inmates?
In the FOIA request?
Yes.
I believe so.
Okay. You believe you're aware of that?
I believe so. I may have read that.
Are you aware that the sheriff's office denied that in part and redacted the names of the inmates who gave statements?
Vaguely.
Okay.
Specifically, no. I'm sorry, if I could interrupt.
Sure.
Everybody's introduced themselves except this gentleman. Is it proper
He's here to assist me. This is
no
Eric
name?
Van Dusen.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Sorry.
Just
Yeah.
sorry about that.
You missed the introductions this morning.
I wasn't here.
Yeah, you're number 2, so sorry. I'm going to show you the FOIA denial that your office provided. Direct your attention specifically to number 3. Do you see that your office denied the request for inmate names based on the unwarranted invasion of personal privacy exemption?
On number 3,
Yeah.
it denied names, addresses, and telephone numbers of inmates.
Yes. You see that?
Yes.
You understand?
Well, it says it was redacted, so if that means denied,
Do you know what it means to redact something?
yes.
Does that mean that you
You don't get it,
correct?
yeah. Cross it out.
Fair. To say that's a partial denial
Of the whole FOIA, you mean?
of the information that's redacted. We don't get that information when it's redacted, right?
Correct, you don't get it.
Okay. And so at the jail, the people that are lodged in the jail are
Yes.
people that have been accused of crimes or have been convicted of crimes, correct?
Charged with crimes,
Charged means accused, right?
okay?
Okay.
Right, sure,
So charged with crimes
right,
or convicted of crimes, right?
yes.
As a matter of policy, you don't...
Not all of them, some are held there for other agencies, but the majority of people in the jail are charged with a crime or serving a sentence.
And the people that are held for other agencies are either accused, charged, or convicted by another agency, right?
Well, I don't, well,
Check the foundation.
they're on, warrants have been issued for their arrest. So it could be a friend of the court thing where they didn't pay money, so that's not a crime.
It's contempt of court, right?
Yeah, okay.
So that's
So
a crime.
they're in there, yeah.
Okay.
We have a
But
lot of,
as a matter of policy, your jail doesn't house people who you believe to be innocent of crimes, right?
correct.
Because it would
That'd be
probably...
bad.
Yeah, it'd be real bad, right? Yes?
Correct.
Okay. And so, and you told me you believe in transparency, right?
Yes.
Is it the position of the Grand Traverse County Sheriff that people convicted of crimes should have that fact private?
It's a public record,
Okay. My question for you,
okay?
as the Sheriff of Grand Traverse County, is it your position that when somebody's convicted of a crime, that should be non-public information?
No, I don't think so.
In fact, is it your position that it's public information?
It is public information through the court system,
Because citizens have a right to know who breaks the law, right?
correct,
It can serve a lot of purposes, like letting us know if people around us are dangerous.
correct.
And in fact, you publicize when people are convicted of crimes, right?
No, I don't believe so.
Does your office hold press briefings
Yes,
daily?
yes.
At those daily press briefings, do you tell the press that people have been accused, arrested, charged with crimes, or convicted?
Not the convicted part.
Oh,
Typically, you ask, we tell people if they're convicted. No, typically, it could happen,
So typically at those daily press briefings, you're only publicizing
Here's what
pre-conviction.
I'm sorry?
You're only
Yeah.
publicizing the stuff that happens
For the
prior
most
to
part,
conviction?
yes.
That someone's been accused
And
or
it
arrested?
depends, could be a case where somebody is convicted and sentenced, and we follow up. Remember, 3 months ago, this happened, this person, okay? I don't believe that happens very often.
But
Typically, when that's in the public, it comes from the local media who get that from the court system.
But so you do hold daily press briefings
Yes.
where you tell the media who has been
Right.
charged,
Yeah.
what arrests you've made.
Typically, names are not released until they have been charged
Right.
by the
Okay.
prosecutor's office.
And sometimes that happens before you make an arrest, sometimes after.
Yes. Correct.
You also, through your office, maintain a Facebook page.
Yes.
And on that Facebook page, you post about people that have been arrested, correct?
I don't know. I'm a low-tech guy. Very seldom go to the Facebook page.
I'm going to show you
So-
what's been marked for identification as exhibit number 3. Do you recognize that?
No.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked for identification as exhibit number 4. Do you recognize that?
Well, let me clarify that. Yeah, this appears to be something from our Facebook page. Have I read this? I don't know.
Who maintains your Facebook page?
Several of our officers, the command staff, captains, lieutenants, and the undersheriff.
Do they have names?
Yes.
What are they?
Undersheriff Nate Alger, Captain Randy Fulis, Captain Chris Clark, Lieutenant Chris Barchef, and Lieutenant Brian Gittes.
And you are aware that they maintain the Facebook page?
Yes, they have
Okay.
access to it depending on who has information to put on there. They put that on there.
And you don't have any objection to your staff posting on the sheriff's office Facebook page that people have been accused of crimes, right?
Charged with crimes?
Sure, charged with crimes.
That's public record.
Okay. Why then is the identity of someone who's within the jail not a public record?
From our office?
Yes, from your
I don't
office.
know. I don't know.
Well, do you think that if I
It's
want...
available, through the court system. So-
is there any reason if I send over a request to your office saying I want a name of everyone that's in your jail, is there any reason I shouldn't get that?
Just object.
I don't know.
Form and Sheriff, I'm objecting.
It's- okay.
Form and foundation.
Was
If this is, this is surrounding our FOIA request, and honestly, I don't deal with that much.
I understand.
Okay, so when you're getting into the nuances here of FOIA and what should be public and not, and what we can exempt and
Why
what we
don't you wait
can't.
for a question to be posed, okay?
Well, I'm just trying to.
I
maybe-
appreciate it, but you're in charge of the
Yeah,
sheriff's office.
Yeah, oh yes.
You're ultimately responsible for what's released and what's not, right?
Check to the foundation.
If you want to,
Buck stops with you.
it stops with me, and if something goes out that's not supposed to, I probably should take action depending on what the situation is.
You could
Okay.
you could choose to release things that maybe you could also choose to withhold. That's a bad question.
If
Let me rephrase my question.
Okay.
If FOIA provides you a protection to withhold a document, you could choose to ignore that protection and still distribute it if you thought it was in the public interest, right?
Check
I
the
don't
form.
know.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know the FOIA.
Have you had any training on FOIA?
None.
None at all.
None.
How do you know if your FOIA coordinator is doing a good job?
I trust her to do a good job. She's a good person.
I think she probably is. How do you know if she's doing a good job?
I don't know.
Okay.
Have there been any issues? If she's not doing a good job, I'm sure that.
You mean other than the instant lawsuit, have there been any issues?
No. Not that I'm aware of. So if she's not doing her job, especially with FOIA and the way the media, local media is around this town, I'm sure I would have gotten a complaint. Probably not from her, but through the undersheriff. So,
Okay. So you've not had any training on FOIA.
not that I recall. No.
Who does she report to?
Generally speaking, the undersheriff.
And has the undersheriff had training on FOIA?
I'm sure he has. But to be specific, you'd have to ask him.
Were you present for any of the Garrity interviews of the jail staff?
No.
And I presume you know what a Garrity interview
Yes.
is, right? Okay. Were you present for any interviews of jail staff that were not compelled under Garrity?
I don't believe I was at any interviews. I believe those were all conducted by the Michigan investigators.
Well, what about the hearings related to employment? 'Cause you terminated
Oh, yes.
someone, right?
I was present on some of those issues, yes, but investigation, no.
So were you present when statements were made by jail staff about the death of Mr. Holloway for any reason?
During the investigation,
At any time?
yes, I believe there were some statements given, either orally or written about. It was statements by officers concerned. I'd have to. Don't recall. If you give me a specific question, I might be able to help. But
Yeah, I appreciate it, but because we're fighting over things we don't know, it's hard to give you specifics sometimes. You say that there were statements by officers who were concerned. You mean officers other than those who were terminated?
I don't think so.
You mean statements made by officers who were terminated?
Without going back, there was only one officer that was terminated.
Right.
One resigned.
Correct.
One terminated. So I don't know. We participated in a lot of employee discipline situations
A moment
with
ago,
two officers. Okay, and the specifics of those, the dates, the times, I can't help you with right now.
a moment ago, you referenced a written statement given by an officer concerned.
I believe there was a written rebuttal to some discipline that we imposed.
Was
Okay.
that given? So it was a statement from an officer who was disciplined.
Explaining his side of the story. I believe that's what it was. I'd have to look at it to, say, well, this is what it was.
And it was after the discipline was imposed.
During that process.
Okay. Have you discussed with anyone other than your lawyers the prospect that you may be sued or your office may be sued over the death of Mr. Holloway?
Yes.
Who?
Anybody that asked me about it. Because past practice is a pretty good indicator of future actions, and we've been sued in the past over inmate deaths in the jail during and prior to my, so why would this be any different is kind of my thought process.
Did those conversations start as soon as the death occurred?
I don't recall.
You speak about it like it's a very common occurrence to talk about the prospect of getting sued based on past actions. Does it come up
That's all-
frequently?
I'm sorry?
Does it come up frequently?
Only when these instances occur.
About how many conversations do you think you've had about getting sued since August 16 of 2017?
I don't know.
Who do you think is responsible for Mr. Holloway's death?
I'm going to object. That goes way beyond the FOIA case. So.
I don't think it does.
Yeah, it does. Sheriff, you don't have to answer that question.
All right. Well, you can take that up later. Do you think you should be sued over his death?
Objection. Forum Foundation.
No.
Why not?
I think answer that because I'll answer what bites it. Yep. Because he's going to object because it goes to your prior question.
Yeah, I think that
I'm
goes
sorry,
well
you don't
beyond the
get to make the
FOIA.
decision. He can direct you not to answer if he's going to, but you need to do that if that's your plan.
Yeah, anything that goes beyond the FOIA case here, we're not going to answer, so.
At the time that the FOIA request came in, did you have an opinion about whether you would be sued?
I had an opinion, yes,
What was that opinion?
and it was we were going to get sued
At the-
because this is what has happened in the past.
At the time the FOIA request came in August of 2017, did you have an opinion about whether you should be sued?
Well, I don't think so.
Okay. At the time the FOIA request came in August of 2017, did you have an opinion about who was responsible for Mr. Holloway's death?
Yes.
What was your opinion?
Same, I'm going to object to it, instruct the witness not to answer. Calls for a legal conclusion as well. I'll add that to the objection.
Okay, let me rephrase the question then, so we have our issue for the motion very finely refined. At the time of Mr. Holloway's death, strike that, at the time of the FOIA request in August of 2017, did you have an opinion about factually who was responsible for Mr. Holloway's death?
Same objections.
Are you telling him not to answer
You don't have to answer that question.
about whether he had an opinion?
You can ask whether you had an opinion, yes. Whether you had an opinion.
Yes, I had an opinion.
What was your opinion?
I'll instruct him not to answer that question.
Let's go off the record.
Put out the record, the time is 1:24 PM. We're back on the record, the time is 1:34.
I'll pass the witness.
I don't have any questions.
Yes, we're done.
Thank you.
Deposition not concluded. Put out the record, time is 1:34.